Hi, ladies and gentlemen.
How are you?
Welcome all. Thanks for coming tonight and joining us for what I hope will actually be a fairly brief public workshop on our proposed short-term rentals ordinance. Before I start, I'll just introduce our city attorney, Alex Lorca, is here with us. Our staff, who you all know better than I do, Kim and Karen. And we have Councilmember Pat Lintel with us tonight as well. So just to review, we held a short-term rental workshop some weeks ago. Every house in Delray Oaks got a postcard, and so we really wanted to ensure that people were informed about this important ordinance change. We had a pretty good turnout. We had probably 25 people or so here that night, and a really good discussion, I thought, a very constructive discussion about status quo here in Delray Oaks, how some municipalities around us are managing short-term rentals, and your input on what we might consider in terms of an ordinance going forward. We took that to City Council at our last City Council meeting with a recommendation to the Council that they direct staff to draft an ordinance, take it back to a public workshop, and then bring it to Council for a first reading. And so, and we summarized some of the major takeaways that we had from your comments. Alex has drafted the ordinance. We're fortunate to have Alex because he previously served on the staff of the City Attorney's Office for the City of Pacific Grove, which, as you probably know, is kind of on the cutting, ragged, crazy edge of, they're kind of where we are with campus, on short-term rentals. And they've been through a lot over there, and Alex, we're fortunate to have his experience with all of that. So he drafted this ordinance based in large part on public input from the first workshop, and what I'd like to do is simply go over it tonight and take your questions, take your comments, and then we will make any edits to the ordinance and then present it to our council on Tuesday, May 22nd. Okay? So, did everybody have a chance to pick up a copy of the draft ordinance as you walked in? You did not have it? Okay. So, what we'll do is kind of go through it briefly here. I'll jump to the second page, 5.24.030, short-term rental regulations. And I think I'll just characterize the ordinance as, and Alex has characterized it this way, I think he's right, but this is a light touch as short-term rentals go. And it's a light touch based on the input we got from the city, from the residents rather. Unlike Carmel and PG and other sort of oceanside destination cities that are really struggling with short-term rentals and their impacts on the character of neighborhoods and parking and all of that, and parties and just all of the craziness that's happening in some of those cities. It was a sense that we got very clearly from you all that, you know, these short-term rentals are legal right now in Delray Oaks, so they're happening. And there's not a large problem that we're trying to fix. But there is the issue of licensing, regulating, taxing, frankly, from a city perspective, that we want to get our arms around. And so that was the general direction that we took and Alex took when drafting it. So you'll see under short-term rental regulations, first and foremost, that it will not, shall not adversely affect the residential character of our neighborhood, nor shall it generate noise, vibration, glare, odors, all of the potential negative aspects that may come out of a short-term rental. Then we talk about advertising. number of guests per bedroom. That was a point that was brought out by residents at our last meeting. That they will all have bathroom facilities accessible to guests. You know, as an example, I think we currently have in town this will change obviously. We have someone that's using a tent and a porta potty. And so this will give us some enforcement tools that, to help with that. No events, parties, gatherings of sort of, you know, the type of weddings, banquets, and that sort of thing are to be used. Signage will be limited with one exception we'll talk about later. And you have to use a house. No yurts, no tents, no trailers or cars. On to 524, and if you please, if you have a question or a comment along the way, please just let me know and we'll stop. So we can take this as we go.
Are you, sorry,
Sure.
Are you going to do broad strokes and then we're going to go back, or is this the review? Because I do have a couple of comments
Fire away.
already.
Yeah,
We're
what,
not there yet? Where are we? What page are we on? Two.
we're on page 3.
Okay, because I have a comment on page. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I'm going to keep going and then just catch me when you want. 524.040, additional regulations for unhosted rentals. So it was clear from our residents that you all differentiated between someone living in their home renting a room versus someone owning a home and renting it out and living somewhere else, right? And so for unhosted rentals, we require, and again, this was clear from residents, they wanted to be able to deal with a nuisance, right, if it came about. So we require a nuisance response plan that contains these 5 elements. And you'll notice that on number 5 there, that the 24-hour contact person will be visible from the outside of the house. So if you are living across the street from a vacation rental and they're permitted in licensing and operating and they are having a raucous party at all hours of the night or whatever the violation might be, you can always call the non-emergency number of your PD and they'll respond. That's always available to you. You can also look at the name and the number on the sign for that house and say, hi, this is the neighbor, and there's noise, and there's a response time built in to this code for that person to deal with and abate the nuisance.
That's a great idea. It really is, because if you think about that, people, you know, can deal with, have trouble-free neighbors.
It can be solved amongst neighbors.
We don't need to go to police. A lot of it.
Good.
What is the response time that you're talking about?
So number 4.
Number 4 is 5 minutes. So you're going to respond in 5 minutes of a phone call. I think that's unreasonable.
You want to be longer?
I do, yeah, I think that's unreasonable.
Great. What do you think it should be?
5-2, you know, but 5 minutes is unreasonable. Let me think about it.
Maybe 5 to 20.
You have to have a dedicated person ready to answer the phone anytime that that would be a business, would be having a business.
What's a reasonable time?
One and a half hours. Okay.
Maybe 5 minutes is like what if you're in the shower and you need to call.
But the 5 minutes is just to make the call to the person. It doesn't necessarily mean to remediate the whole nuisance.
Who's making the call?
Yeah, who's making the call?
The 5 minutes is, who's calling who?
Is the person, the 24-hour contact calling the owner and saying, hey, there's a problem.
That's not enough.
The
5 minutes
24
is
hour
whoever the contact is,
to call.
boots on the ground person.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not there or you're out to dinner, that person is your go-to and they're supposed to
designated by the renters as the renter.
The
So
whole-
within 5 minutes, you call the renter and say, hey, it's noisy over there, you gotta keep this down.
You mean you call the person called the renter, but you don't have that?
The guest, you mean the guest?
Yes, the primary adult occupant of this
You need to give it more time.
That's just not enough time to, really, by the time people.
No, guys, this is great input. I mean, this is why we're here. So this is all good.
The 24-hour contact person will have the phone number of all the renters.
Right, but the 24-hour contact person, is that the 5-minute window, or is it the person?
No, let's say there's a phone call to the 24-hour contact person.
Right,
That person, whoever's responsible,
right,
has within 5 minutes to pick up the phone and call the renter and say, hey, we're getting complaints, you need to.
They can make it, oh, but that's a, but.
Yeah, and then another 20 minutes to remediate.
so when you're contacting
So you,
the
so
person.
let's go through this. Let's kind of go through this.
You know, whiteboard.
So you are living across the street in your home, and I'm the responsible agent for this house, right? And I live somewhere else.
Okay,
But my name and number are on the outside of this vacation.
Emergency phone.
okay.
And you hear
Noise.
noise. You call the number, and I pick up the phone, assuming I pick up the phone.
Yeah, so,
But that's-
Designated time.
No, there's no designated.
Or there's no
So I'm sorry,
designated-
let me walk through. So you call that number, and I pick up. So now I pick up, hi, and you say, hi, I'm across the street from this house, this is the address, and they're playing loud music, and it's after hours, and please do something. From that notification to me,
Okay,
I have 5 minutes to call the occupants,
oh, that makes sense.
and they have 20 minutes to abate. That's the way this is written.
Turn down the music, tell everyone it's time to go
Well, it's just
home.
if
That's
I'm
the
at
20-minute
dinner and
window.
I don't get that call,
What
then
if, I mean, what if
That
they're
doesn't trigger
across
the clock.
town and
If you give a
the person
message,
doesn't pick up?
obviously.
You know,
No, but if there's loud music or noise, they should
No,
be in
no.
the building.
But what I mean is, okay, you're the contact,
Okay.
you're the complainer.
Yep.
You call that person.
Right.
And the occupant, guest, and they don't pick up.
Right.
There's so much noise.
Or whatever, but you're across town, you're not in the neighborhood.
Right.
You might even be, it's, 2 towns over, but you're the designated person.
I think the 5 minutes is contact. I
Right.
mean, if it takes you
5 minutes is contact.
20
Yeah.
minutes to contact them, it would be 20. But you have to make the initial phone call
Yeah.
within 5 minutes.
So let's talk about the point. What are we trying to accomplish?
Well, maybe it's trying to simplify it, it needs to be remedied within 30 minutes of the complaint.
I'm sorry.
I mean, simplify it to say it needs to be remedied within 30 minutes of the complaint. Simplify, not this 5 minute and 20 minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do here, and we can, and this is really good, so I appreciate all this. What we're trying to do here is fix responsibility on the person responsible for the house. Right? And wherever they live. And if they're in Omaha, they're responsible for the house. If they're across town, they're responsible for the house. If they're right down the street, they're responsible for the house. If they're out to dinner and they've rented out, they're still responsible for the house. So we're trying to fix that responsibility in a reasonable way.
And this is for, sorry,
Yeah.
this is, part of this plan is the city will be asking them for that information. There's nothing that says they can't have 2 or 3 people who are the responsible contact person, but they need to let the city know who those people are going to be. If they're going to be out of town or the contact person moves away, they've got to update the city as to that. So it really is on, if you're an owner or a tenant in the house and you want to do this, the consensus that we heard was you've got to be responsible for it. You can't just say, sorry, I was out at dinner, sorry that, kept your family up.
Yeah, what we heard was 2 things, responsible and responsive, right? And so what happens if you bust this time? What happens if you don't make the 5 minutes, you don't make the 20 minutes? Well, then you're in violation of the code. Our police will get a call, they'll go out and remediate. So we always have a fallback to a police solution, right? Or code enforcement if it's during the day, or whatever the city solution might be. But it gives us the tools then, the next day, the day after that, to go back to that licensed short-term rental operator and say, here's a warning, you're in violation of the code, don't let it happen again. Because again, here's a citation for $100, you're in violation of the municipal code. Happens again, your license is revoked, thank you for coming, see and hear. And so it gives us, now, that third reaction may be overly harsh at that point, but the point I'm trying to make is that it gives us a enforcement mechanism that we can use to keep the community, what we heard from neighbors wanting to keep it, and that is a neighborhood as opposed to, loud music and so on and so forth.
Sorry, you were next.
So what is the protocol for someone, you're the neighbor, my house, woo-hoo, big party, brr. Who are you gonna call? I live there, it's my family's thing.
It's her party.
This is
She's
only
the
a
resident.
this is only a
I get it, what is the regular protocol for the city when there's a disturbance?
Well, the first thing is you walk across the street, knock on the door and say, will you please turn it down, it's
And
late, right?
they go, oh yeah, sure, we'll go. And then,
Then you call an emergency number and a police officer responds and makes an assessment if they're in violation of the noise ordinance and.
I don't know, before, there's been some really loud music.
I'm just trying to say the parallel between the code for the person who lives in the town and then are we going
Yes.
beyond that we
Overreach.
Right. Yes, that's all.
No, that's helpful. So,
So still, you do need a contact person, I get that.
okay.
And that brings me to my next question, which is, can the contact person actually be the homeowner?
Sure.
Absolutely.
But it would only be, then it would be a secondary person if the person could have been a hold of that
Right.
homeowner.
Yeah,
It's whoever the homeowner
Making
designates.
sure there's a backup.
If they want to come in for a license, they're accepting the fact that it can't just maybe be them, that they've got to get other people who can be responsive to it.
But the 24-hour contact person, the number one person, could be the homeowner.
Sure,
That's
sure,
my question.
absolutely. It's whoever, frankly, it's whoever the homeowner designates.
Okay.
And it could be
They
yourself.
can designate an alternate if they weren't around.
Yeah, sure.
But my question does go back to the beginning. If we're going to go back, we can go back, or we can continue and go back later. Whatever you.
As you wish.
No, as you wish, you're in charge.
Okay, I'm gonna keep going. How about that? Yes, ma'am.
Well, I was just gonna say, I like what this lady said, because I've had neighbors, I've called a non-emergency number twice in 15 years. Once was noise, and because I wasn't sure, what constitutes decibels and all that stuff, and I was just told anything that's loud enough to disturb you, we're gonna do something about it. The other one was, the next door neighbor had a fire pit in the backyard, and it was like maybe 11 o'clock at night, it's windy. Fire was going way up in the air, and the sparks, and so the person was great. I looked it up on the internet, I couldn't figure it out. The person I called in a non-emergency number solved it, they told me what was good and what wasn't, but they always either solve it or come out and solve it. Del Rey's is just so great, so that's just like a regular person, no rental involved.
And Pat makes a good point, we're talking about, the homeowner, the needs to the homeowner. We do provide that if it's a long-term tenant, they want to rent it out short-term, so it could also be the tenant that's responsible. Or just a,
That's a good point. Yeah. Okay, that was terrific, I appreciate it. Going on to the next paragraph, 050 is host requirements. And essentially, a host is going to be responsible for any nuisance violations, and it's going to be required to keep records of the rental. 060 gets to the license requirements, and essentially says you need to have a license. It's good for a year. It's not transferable, it doesn't transfer with the property. And outlines the requirements A through F as to what will be submitted as part of the application. We'll obviously, once the ordinance is approved, we'll be preparing applications with this information. It'll be available at the front counter.
Do you have a cost yet?
No. Good question. Every application for a short-term rental license, including renewal applications, shall be accompanied by a fee, which we have yet to determine. It'll be based on the staff time required to manage and handle these license applications. No person shall make false statements, so just keeping you honest. The city manager may deny based on A through F, which is generally
the common sense,
violation,
Yeah.
right? And how it can be renewed. On to 070, advertising without a license is prohibited. TOT is currently 10% in the city code, transient occupancy tax.
Would that go directly to the city?
I'm sorry?
Would that go directly to the city?
That goes directly to the
Oh,
city.
great.
So TOT is terrific. I mean,
And how is it distributed or incorporated into the budget? Is
it
it,
goes into the general fund.
and then
Then
it's distributed willy-nilly, however you determine? No,
Well-
Your mark.
for,
It's not restricted to.
No, it's not
restricted to the city.
Did you look into building that into the actual websites, the collection of the 10%?
We will.
We will,
Yeah, Airbnb, yeah, we definitely will. Yep, thank you.
any chance of getting more of the budget towards maintenance of the city? Landscaping with the increased tax?
That's a lovely idea.
That's at the budget meeting that's coming up.
Right, right,
I would like to keep that in mind. I know it just benefits everyone. but-
absolutely,
Okay, good.
absolutely. And so TOT, we talked about enforcement violations, fines and penalties. This gets to the enforcement regime, which basically ties to the code enforcement ordinance that we passed, the council passed in the last several months. Gives us the structure to enforce. The appeal process of a denial, revocation, or suspension. There is an appeal process available to the residents or owners whose licenses are revoked or suspended. 120 talks about liens and special assessments. So there are really teeth in this, and the teeth are based on our code enforcement ordinance, which the council passed, which allow up to and including placing a lien against the property if there's not restitution for fines. The administrative policy talks about our zoning, and it will amend our zoning code. Section 3 will amend our zoning code to allow for short-term rentals. Section 4 addresses the CEQA. Section 5 talks to adoption and then implementation instructions. And that is the long and short of it, ladies and gentlemen. We're happy to take your questions. Yes, sir.
The liens and special assessments, is that only to participating license holders? Or is, I mean, in the case of someone who is doing a short-term rental but doesn't have the license, that the liens and special assessments does not apply to them?
The liens and special assessments ties to chapter 1.19 of the code, which is not specific to short-term rentals.
So that can happen?
Absolutely. So if you violate any chapter of the code
As long as
under
it's
the ordinance,
property related, we're able to tie that into.
exactly. Right. Man, you had a question earlier. Did you find where you were thinking
Yeah, I
of?
did. Under definitions, the top of the second page,
That's right.
first sentence,
Top second page.
first sentence,
First
hosted, typically a bedroom, is rented, and the host is present during the rental throughout the guest stay, except during daytime and or work hours. So, for people who travel a lot, that's not realistic because you're not there, so how can you be hosted and be present? And we kind of went over all that in the first meeting, and that's what I'm trying to understand. I understand the primary residence part. In other words, it's my house. I go travel for 2 weeks, I come back, I'm home for a month, I go away for a week, I'm back for a week. I mean, I'm not there to be hosting, but it is my primary residence. So that is a little ambiguous. And then I saw something about 9 months. I saw that in there. Do you remember what paragraph?
That was residency requirements. Where was that? 2 more down. Under primary residence.
Yeah, I mean, if you're, primary residence
Last sentence.
reside there for a minimum of 9 months per year. Well, if you're traveling, you're not necessarily going to be there for 9 months per year, if you travel a lot. So the concept is you want to make sure that that's your primary residence and you're not, there for 1 week a year, obviously. But that's a very kind of arbitrary number because
It's definitely a binary number, perhaps we could strike it after primary residence period instead of
Can I make one?
Because we did discuss this.
yeah, we discussed it initially, and the idea was that it needed to be, what we didn't want is people renting out
Right. Yeah, you're done, exactly,
Thank
victory.
you.
Or, but there's also in the first sentence about being present. How can you be present? That doesn't make sense if you're renting it out. How can you be-
I think we have to make the distinction of, hosted versus unhosted. Does that mean it's your primary residence, or does that mean you have to physically be there when the renters are there?
No,
It means
no,
it's your
it
primary
means
residence.
it's your primary
It doesn't mean that
residence.
you have to be there.
Can I help with
Because
that?
you can't
Yeah,
be in
please.
two places at the same
So-
time.
So in that regard, no, I mean, I understand that issue with traveling a lot, but if you're paying the bill, if you're paying your power bills or something like that, then that's your primary residence, regardless if you're gone for a year or 3, you still call it. I mean, we use the same issue, or we use the same designation for voting, right?
Right, exactly.
Right,
That's-
so I think that's established. I think your
That's-
primary residency is maintained as long as you're paying PG&E and water and
And
whatever.
I think from the meeting, the distinction was if it's your primary residence, whether you're there a lot or not, is you have skin in the game.
Yeah,
This is,
Right, but this verbiage,
Right.
the verbiage doesn't,
Okay.
I mean, I think there's maybe a different way to say it, which is just what we said, which is, you know,
So maybe,
short-term rental licensees shall not rent or buy a house in Del Reyes for the purpose and not occupy it and have it for the purpose. I mean, we could literally put that verbiage in.
Or again, you could strike it at the top of page 2,
Right.
typically a bedroom, close paren, is rented, period. Because we're talking about a primary residence.
Right.
But you could
Okay.
also eliminate the last part of the last paragraph, or last sentence of primary residence definition. A person.
We did.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
The definition of an unhosted rental, in the case that you brought up, that brings up an interesting case, is that could someone come in who's never ever, has no intention of being a resident of Del Reyes, but just buys property within Del Reyes because we have this great ordinance? It's completely an unhosted rental, but they are never really, I guess, officially a resident. They've never lived here. They solely have bought this property just to have a VPRO. Is that captured, or?
well, that's a concern. I mean, we need to guard against that somehow.
Yeah, I was wondering,
Well, yeah, there's that. If we know they're doing that, we don't give them a license, potentially.
Right, well, that's
How do we-
a catch, that's a catch.
Yeah, how do we condition that? Alex, maybe we look at rules for voting, rules for state residency for tax purposes, I don't know.
Yeah.
We only want to allow this for residents of Del Reyes to have a home, is that correct? That's
It's not yet, so is it for is it only for homeowners, right?
It's not for homeowners because it could be an out-of-town homeowner. It would center around primary residence and evidence that showed that this is, though you may be traveling, this is your main residence.
Yeah.
One can have, many locations, but you have one residence and that's where you vote. And ultimately, it's a subjective test. I mean,
Yeah.
where in your mind is your primary residence? If it's the couch at your office, I've seen arguments made that that's where my primary residence.
Yeah,
Right, okay.
but I do agree that there is a check, there's a qualification at the application point. I mean, I think that puts a large onus on you and the staff.
Which is no problem. I mean,
Right,
and that's, if that's,
For primary residence, yes.
yeah, if that's, well, there's that. But there's also, you show us your utility bill, you
Yeah,
show us
right.
certain
I'm
criteria.
fine with that, if the application process helps guard there, then.
But I also do think that we can put some language in there that speaks to if indeed it is your primary residence
Yeah.
under that definition. So
Yeah.
I've got a note here to flesh that out.
All right.
Yeah. That's
Sure.
how,
There will be a name.
Right,
utility bill, yeah.
yeah. Good. All right, so we got some recrafting to do on hosted. We've struck the language last sentence out of primary residence. Anything else?
And what do we do about the 5 minutes?
We made it free. No, I'm just kidding.
It worked.
I'm very comfortable standing there.
Because ultimately, it is on the homeowner, and if there's complaints, one way or the other, it's
Right.
time to go.
So let me ask this, what's the, I'm sorry, let me ask this, what's the right time? What's a,
Maybe if it could take care of
then the Del Rey Oaks would then come in and then remediate
Good,
the problem. Okay.
good.
And keep in mind health and safety things like a fire in the house or people hanging from windows. I mean, that's always, you can pick up the police and just be like, hey, we need you right now.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, what happens if there's a neighbor that isn't aware that this is a rental and they don't know where the phone number is and they just call the cops?
That's fine. You can always-
That's fine, that's
Okay,
within their
so
right.
it doesn't
Preclude
affect.
Absolutely.
And the Del Rey Oaks police will have a list of every rental there is.
Because all the
That,
applications,
right?
yeah.
You know, I
That's
look at
actually-
that
How do you
24-hour notification just a little
Yeah.
bit differently. I mean, I think it's good, but I think it could be, if you have a crazy neighbor that any little thing, they're gonna call you because the guy's in the back, you know what I mean? They're
Right,
gonna have your phone number.
But enforcement is a discretionary act, and it's complaint driven. If there's a bunch of the complaints that really aren't complaints, then
Yeah.
enforcement doesn't have to go forward.
Right, but they have my number and they keep calling.
Where was the number again? Is there your phone number?
I'm sorry, if I can, so what's your point?
Posting, I don't have unoccupied, but I was just
Right.
thinking, you're putting my number, I'm somewhere else, and I have this crazy neighbor who hates short-term rentals, period, and they just keep calling me because the guys in the backyard are talking. They just keep calling that 24-hour number, and I'm somewhere else,
Right.
and is it really happening?
Is that really gonna happen?
I don't like the fact that people have my private number.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, let me try to keep control, please. So,
Yeah.
you put a number you want. It doesn't have to be, it can be your cell phone number.
Yeah.
It can be a number that goes to an agent you hire, if you don't want to be bothered. It can be a number that goes to an answering machine, if you're willing to accept that in terms of risk. But I think part of the contract of doing business in the city as a short-term rental business is that you're going to have a number on file with this city. So,
And as a police, but not with my neighbor.
well, I think what our residents are concerned about, and this is something we'll have to deal with, and is if you're not in residence.
And I am, this is just hypothetical.
Okay, well, maybe you should do about nothing, right? Okay, all right, so, I think if you're not a resident and you want to have a license, then part of that transaction is your number, a number you give us and a name will be reachable by the phone. Yeah. Yes,
Setting aside that issue, I think that could be a very real issue, but the prominence of the signage, to the point that was made here earlier, I think that is important. I mean, that should be, you should be able to basically just drive down the street and go, oh yeah, that's a short-term rental, that's a short-term rental, that's a short-term. I mean, I think that should be kind of known.
okay. I think the way as written, while it's rented, there will be a way to find the name and contact information
Okay.
for.
All right.
That's the idea as written. Yeah, yes, ma'am.
I'm a little confused on 5.24.040, number 5, where it talks about the placard shall be placed in every unhosted rental identified in 24-hour. So if you're, let's say you are not out of town and you have guests renting part of your house, does that mean you don't have to put some sort of visible placard? And is this a visible placard that you only have up when you're not around? And does it go in your window? I mean, where does it go exactly?
Yeah, these are all good questions.
These are great questions. So first of all, let me start
Kind
with,
of creepy to be putting
Yeah,
your
I think
phone
so
number.
too.
I don't even answer my door without looking through the peephole and know who it is, so I don't want to put my phone number up.
no, it's a great question, let me take a swing at it. So first, there's a differentiation between hosted and unhosted rentals. So this is talking about unhosted rentals, where you are not there. Right? So in the case where you are not there, whether you're still in town somewhere or far away,
Meaning if I go out to dinner, or
No,
if I
no,
go
no,
to some
you're not
friends,
there.
I'm not understanding.
You're in access to people, that's your residence.
Right.
so you're
Yeah,
not.
But I
this-
thought we don't have any unhosted.
This doesn't
residences.
apply to you.
What
No,
about-
we do.
We do?
So we do.
Yeah, there is.
No, but I thought we're not allowing any.
No, we are. That's a really important
But yours
distinction.
is posted.
unhosted, if you're not here,
It's not your primary residence.
meaning it's not your primary
Yeah,
residence,
it's you.
and you are renting it out on a regular basis to a short-term rental business you're running, then there needs to be a visible name and number,
It would be like-
so that your neighbors
Right.
can call you, or your agent, it can be an agent.
Right, I get that, but I thought we just discussed, unless I missed it, that we were not allowing people who are not residents of Delray Oaks to have houses as short-term rentals unless they were residents, which would mean it would be.
No, what we were talking about was how to differentiate between hosted and non-hosted. So what we were talking about before was sort of that non-hosted, or rather the hosted category. So where you might rent a room, that's what we're talking about.
Okay,
And we were talking about how to prove residence,
okay,
right?
got it.
You don't need to be in it 9 months out of the year because you may be traveling a lot. You may not want to be in the house when you rent it, right? You may want to travel for a week and rent your house out, that's still hosted. So that's what we were talking about, was
That
that
is
hosted
hosted.
category.
If you travel
So
for,
all of your belongings are in
because
the
it's
house.
still your primary residence.
Yeah, because, and the idea is that you still care. All your stuff's in the house. You're renting it out to somebody. You're more invested than if you're somewhere else and it's your second home. That's it.
So are we not having those that come in here and buy property for the reason of opening, having an Airbnb or a short-term rental? Because there are some like that. So I guess I am confused, because are we gonna have those or
Unhosted
not?
or not?
Yeah,
Because
those
there's
are
gonna be
unhosted,
multiple
they're still
coming.
allowing.
So let me just clarify the question. So the question is, are we going to allow short-term rentals of someone buying a home in Delray Oaks,
Right,
not living in it,
right.
and using it as a short-term rental?
That was my question.
Isn't that
Or
unhosted?
net, I guess there's some that have
Yeah,
it.
not exactly, there's definitions for it, there's a term for it.
Yes. So the answer to that is, as this ordinance is written, it allows for it.
It does allow.
That it does.
And then we,
So
that's the
people can come
unhosted,
in,
an unhosted rental.
But how do you regulate the people that come in and take up the houses for that purpose?
That was one of the points.
Yes,
So that's what actually we're trying to avoid.
Purchasing homes
Right.
with
For
that
that form of purpose,
intent.
yeah.
So they don't have any personal interest in the home other than making money.
Right.
To be the same thing with rental though,
Yeah.
for a full-time rental. I think we're getting semantics in here because if I'm buying a home, I'm a resident here, but if I'm buying a home, and if I want to buy it and rent it out for a whole year to
Yeah.
someone,
Right?
okay, how can you stop me from doing that? You can't.
No, but a long-term rental is different than a vacation short.
Right, so, but what I'm saying is that if I buy a home,
Mhm.
and I want to, have someone staying in there, every night or every weekend, so forth, I think the person is still going to want to maintain their home for one, probably get it clean in there regularly. But what are we really trying to do here? We're trying to prevent someone from buying up homes and using them for short-term rentals when Laguna Seca blows up and its property here is worth $2.8 million. I mean, really, that's what we want to try and do. But ultimately, if there's no problem with your neighbours and we're paying our taxes and paying our occupancy taxes, there's never going to be a problem with this.
Well, and there is, because it does change the neighborhood. If you're surrounded by short-term rentals.
But it's already happening right now, that's what we're saying.
Right, what I wouldn't like to happen in Delray Oaks is someone coming in, like the one up the street, buying a property with that in mind.
So let me ask this, and it's a wonderful point, a
Because
wonderful.
then it does change.
The last
the
time,
entire
at the last workshop we had, where we landed on this point was to not restrict. That's where we landed.
We
So-
landed on to restrict.
Okay, and that's why we're here. So,
And maybe possibly cap them, because if every other, I mean, there's one full house right down the street.
Right.
Now, there's two houses for me that's up for sale, and then there's one right next door to me that's a full house rental. Now, one thing I don't want is 1, 2, 3, 4 full
Right.
house rentals. And I have an Airbnb, by one that have people coming and going.
Okay,
And
so let me ask,
nobody-
this is a really, really good point, and let's flesh it out. So right now, and for as long as short-term rentals have been a thing, which they probably exploded since the online vehicles came on with Airbnb and VRBO and those kinds of things, but they've been around for, presumably forever. They've been allowed here, right? So you could buy a home, and you could rent it out in perpetuity, live in another home, live anywhere else, and do that. So, is there a problem today, or are we trying to deal with a potential problem in the future? Or
I
both?
think we're trying to not have, in PG,
Yeah,
they will only have full house rentals.
right,
You cannot have one within a certain proximity of another one. Like, they'll have one, but you can't have one like right next door or 2 houses down.
right,
So they do limit the number of full house rentals,
they do.
because they
They
don't.
also have a lottery.
They have a lottery, but they do, the house sharing is no problem, anybody can get there. But the whole house rental, they limit those, and they also say you can't have one if you're within like a block and a half from another one.
Okay.
So that therefore it eliminates someone coming in block and block and block, because if you buy a house for $700,000, you're gonna make good money on that $700,000. You can make a mortgage, you can have it with the short-term rental.
So what would you suggest?
I would say cap them, I would say proximity. I would say some type of regulation where we don't have people swooping in, buying
Non-residents, maybe?
because that's what they're gonna do, because Monterey doesn't allow it, PG doesn't allow it. We're the only one that will let people come in and buy house to house, 3 houses in a row, making short-term rentals.
And we're much more reasonable than those.
Yeah.
Becca?
Yeah, I think that's a valid concern, but we don't know if it's a concern yet.
Right.
What I would like to do would be, we have the tools in place to, one, if that becomes a problem, to relinquish get rid of the offending rental,
Right.
and then come back and address it. But I would like to, I would like to actually try kind of this, what we've got right here, this kind of flavor, and then address it if it becomes an issue. Because, like Dino said, it's been going on since way before the internet. My mom was doing it in the 80s, and so, this has been going on in Delaware, and it's completely unregulated.
And we do have the ability every year to not renew licenses, so if we wanted
Yeah.
to see a cap or
Yeah,
a setback requirement, we would then just not renew them. And that's why it's 1 year.
If you have that in place,
Cap.
it would let people know, oh, I can't buy this home. There's 2.
Well, there's a couple,
There's 2 full
let
ones.
me give you an example of a concern frankly I have personally about a camp.
Well, not really a cap, within proximity.
Whatever restriction you want to call it, right? So just pick your restriction,
Mhm.
is you have now made it a commodity.
yeah,
You've now,
Exactly.
I'm gonna get right,
exactly.
because it's limited.
Well, there are,
So-
you already got one.
No, I understand. Well,
Because of Del,
but it's-
because of all the other cities.
Exactly.
Del Reyes
You're-
is trying for the
Right,
big.
that's right.
But is
There's
that-
one right down, oh yeah, there's one right down the street from
you
me.
see the numbers increasing of homes being used as short-term rentals?
Well, I sold one, there's one next door,
Yeah.
but they lived in it, and then they moved. But then there's one down the street, the gentleman
Yep.
bought property in Seaside. Now he's moving into Del Reyes. And he's got.
So he's an operator of
Oh,
short-term
yeah.
rentals.
He's got like 6 or 7 properties. He's the one that puts 14 puts 14 in a 3-bedroom house. Well, that,
Well, so so
Right,
we have other ways to deal with that.
right,
Oh,
right.
that's
14 in one
illegal.
house, but
Yeah.
that's really good, thank you.
because I really don't want houses right next to me, and the next to me,
Of course.
next to me be
Right.
short-term rentals.
Yes,
One of the things, when you have long-term rentals, they're still your neighbors and you still get to know them. If somebody's churning and getting a house specifically for that and they're not a resident, they don't have anything at stake. They could turn around and do it as a long-term rental if you cut them off. But is there something that we can do and basically street or some kind of, I just was thinking that if it got out of hand with unoccupied or what do you call it, unhosted, it's one of those things that maybe to ask the people who are coming, or just put in your listing, no campers allowed. I mean, I don't know, that sounds sort of restrictive, but sometimes things, I guess it happens once in a blue moon where things can get a little.
What I would say to a lot of these concerns, because I hope you guys don't take this the wrong way, I'm not trivializing it at all. To the extent they are hypothetical future,
Right.
we can amend it. Right? We can amend our ordinance at any time. I think what we're shooting for here at the staff level is to bring to council a reasonable ordinance for the contemporary situation in our city and the immediate future. Because we don't want something that we know we're gonna have to amend in 90 days.
Right.
But if we think we've got something that can work for a year, kind of test it out, get our license and permitting process in place, get a handle on how many we have, we don't even know, right? Get a handle on that, start enforcing where we catch somebody, hey, you know what, I saw you on the RBO advertising, but you don't have a license, bang, here's a fine, and start kind of working through that a little bit. Then come back and say, here's how we can improve this ordinance. Here's where we undershot, overshot, here's how times are changing. So I would just put that out there as we don't have to foresee every permutation of future threat, right? Necessarily. And it doesn't mean we shouldn't think about it, but
Right.
So there's no way that we could do something like PG is doing, where you have a proximity of, like, you can't
Like I
have.
said, it's not an issue yet. If it becomes an issue.
Yeah, that's when I would like.
Right, where you wouldn't have another full Airbnb within like 2 blocks. But that's like PG, that
Yeah.
you can have so many within a proximity, so they're not overrun by it.
right.
So if you grab a license, then someone down the street can't grab a license. Because
Well,
what
why
they're
not?
finding in Pacific Road is, they're moving from Pacific Road, they're moving in there, making a nice neighborhood, and all of a sudden they're surrounded by Airbnbs. And it's changing the whole neighborhood.
Well, that's what we don't know.
Interesting, yeah.
I mean, what we really don't, I mean, I've gone on and tried to search, vacation rental by owner or Airbnb for Delray Oaks,
Right.
and it's pretty sparse.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean we're not seeing it all. Doesn't mean they're not using other mechanisms for rental, right? Those potentials all exist, but
So just think it's so important to go back to, what is the reason we did this in the first place for? And if you make this too much of a difficult process, then, for example, I'm a homeowner that does that thing. You make it difficult for me to get a license, is what we're doing here, to comply for that. I might just go ahead and just stick with what I'm doing and not get a license, and then you can't get my 10%. Okay, so that's what people think. I'm just telling you. So if you put all these very specific things in, you're actually making it more difficult to collect people from license to get licenses. The end result is this: we want to get some money, all right, and we want to have a tool that we can go back to the owner of the home and pull their license. It's that simple. But all these things that I think that we're just losing sight of the simplicity of this. And I just know people quite well, different people than we are, and when you make permits difficult, they don't come and get permits. If you make a license too enforcing, we're not going to get a license. I'm just telling you what happens in real life. So I like the simplicity. Thank you.
yes, sir.
So I have 2 points. One, it's always harder to relax an ordinance. It's much easier to make an ordinance more stricter. So I think if we start with basically kind of this skeleton or the straw man, and if we recognize that there's an issue, man, we can get on it very quickly and start to clamp down and address the issues. I think that's, rather than closing everything down and then realizing, well, we don't really have a problem, so let's go down and step, let's finish that. So that's the first point, but I do have a second point on the hosted rental definition. In the case where someone leaves, and this is probably how a lot of us have used it, because I know I've personally done it this way, is that we have these huge events where people will pay you $10,000 a week to come stay in your home, because it's just cheaper and everything. And that's, Beach Food, Wine, Car Week, all these kind of things. That in our definition is it's a hosted rental, but I leave town.
Right.
And I give them now they can throw a party and they go nuts, and in the hosted rental ordinance, there's no recourse for the neighbor across the street to call. Now, my neighbors have my number, they would probably call me anyway, but if all of a sudden there's a party going on and I'm out of town and there's no placard up front and it says, hey,
So let's use that example.
Yeah.
Let's use that example.
Yeah.
So you do exactly that. Right?
Yeah.
And that exact thing happens.
Yeah.
And your neighbor calls the non-emergency number and says, hey, people are going crazy across the street.
yeah,
PD rolls out there, yep, sure enough, it's crazy. There's 20 people, it's a party, it's loud,
Yeah.
it's obnoxious, lights, all that stuff. Quiet it down, right, immediately. That's the PD enforcement aspect of it. And then there's the code enforcement aspect of it. So they don't have to write a police citation, right, a misdemeanor cite. I come and see you the next day, right, and we code enforce.
and then there's still
You're on the hook, you're on the hook for a couple things. You're on the hook for illegally vacation rental.
Yeah,
Right.
Or no, I mean, no, say I'm in the hosted sense.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm in the hosted sense, meaning that I have a license and I can have a hosted rental.
So you had, okay,
But
so
I've left town.
were you in, did you have more people than you're supposed to per bedroom? So in the thing, we go right down the
If I'm
checklist.
out of town and I don't have that kind of, we're just getting into all these kind
Yeah.
of pretensions again, but in that situation, I guess the one point I was trying to make is, in that situation, is that really truly a hosted rental? Is that considered,
You have to draw the line somewhere, but the short-term regulations that apply to both hosted and unhosted talk about parties, events, gatherings, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I can prosecute that as a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
There's code enforcement, as well as there's a PD response.
oh, there's hammers, I know there's hammers
Hammers,
coming back,
you know.
but I'm just asking, is that in that definition, should we call it a hosted rental
Because
if
the
I live down?
residence that's being rented is your personal residence.
Yeah.
It's to Dino's point, is there skin in the game for you? Is it your stuff in the house that you're exposing to people? So I would say it is.
Yeah.
It
I mean,
is
this
hosted.
is, my wife and I go through the same argument.
Totally, no,
Right.
and where you
It's
guys
like,
live.
I'm not letting
yeah.
people in this house.
Exactly.
That's our
right.
stuff.
Right, exactly.
Right, and the people we would let in the house, which we have, we've let people in the house,
Yeah,
are vetted to kingdom come.
right.
Because we're not locking up our jewelry, and we're not,
I'll tell you what I'm more concerned about is pissing
Yeah.
off my neighbors in that situation. Meaning
Exactly.
that, do my neighbors have recourse in that situation where I'm out of town? Or if my kids go
Right.
nuts
right,
and throw a party. I mean,
yes, ma'am.
If you put in your listing that there are no parties, you
Yeah.
can only have, you can't, even if you rent to a couple, and they invite 20 couples, then you have a party.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
if
yeah.
you say absolutely no parties, and if there's, whatever, there's a way to, you can have them thrown out immediately.
Right.
You could call
And there's a
everybody
rating.
and say, these guests did this, and they have to leave immediately.
Right, I think that's
And the
right. I
police
think-
frequently will, for municipal code violations, say, forward on to city attorney for possible enforcement. So they'll go there, make their report, and sometimes it'll show up in my box, and I'll decide, do we want to enforce this, do we not, do we want to go with administrative enforcement, do we not?
All right, okay, I agree with
It's
that.
really hypothetical, so we should just stick to the plan here.
So far, so good.
Lovely. I think that's
You know, can I
wisdom.
just say one thing, on the unhosted one, maybe we can just put a max number of nights per year that house can host people, and that might deter people
feature.
from buying houses. If you say you can only, rent it out so many nights per year, that might make people, well, if I can only do it that many nights a year, well, I don't want to buy a house there because I may be losing out on this.
So for the unhosted, we would restrict potentially the number of nights per year that you could rent it out. Unhosted.
Think about that.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair.
That would be sort of.
So what about last time?
Yeah, somebody mentioned that.
And that will prevent
Thoughts on
you.
it?
I've seen it done, I've seen 180 days done, I've seen 210 days done.
Not enough restriction.
Right.
It's more about quality than quantity. It's really about being a good neighbor.
Yeah,
And,
I agree with that.
what if somebody buys a house here and then a month later they get transferred to the East Coast and then they've invested and they want to keep the house?
But
and
rent
then
it to a long-term
What we told owners when they came to us was to buy a house, should we long-term rent or short-term rent? We say you're gonna come out the same economically, because over a span of many, many years of doing this, this is what happens. They only rent it part-time. They pay, especially if they have a manager, they have to pay a higher fee if it's short-term. They have to furnish it, they have to have it in perfect condition, they pay all the utilities. They come out the same. Because usually renters are like 50% of the time short-term rentals versus a long-term rental.
You're talking about occupancy rate, right? Yeah.
So like in your example, someone buying and then being transferred, it'd be better for long-term rent. The only people who used to do the short-term rentals were people that said, I want to use it myself or my family, and so I'm gonna just make it a vacation rental, so I can use it sometimes. But then they find out the economics and they have a
Stay in
decision.
a hotel.
Yeah, they have a decision.
Thank you.
That's an excellent point. What I personally want is I want the scenario that I was just kind of gaming out, is that, when it's a really bad weekend here, I want to get the hell out of town, but I also want to make some money while I'm in town.
Yeah, and I think, look, I think that this ordinance allows you to do that,
Yeah.
but makes you responsible.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Not only your neighbors.
Without the neighbors, I mean,
Yeah.
right, exactly.
This is a great.
It's a good idea. Let us think about that. The number, cabinet number.
Yeah,
number
that's
nine.
actually, that'll keep people from just coming here and just buying a house right now.
And it's almost, could be added on to the portion here, it says primary residence. You could just reword that, 'cause it talks about, the goal here was you've got to be living here for 9 months of the year. You can reverse that and saying, you can only do a short-term rental, non-hosted for 90 days a year. For example, you can do it either way.
That's very restrictive.
Well,
Is it just
but,
like you said?
It just,
Well, you don't have to live here anymore for 9 months.
Yeah.
You got rid of that line.
Yeah, that's-
So.
okay, then, I'll let my computer.
Okay. All right, so let's review the bidding, shall we?
Can I add one more little thing? I'm gonna play devil's advocate. How do we know they're only running at 180 days a year?
We have to report based on the taxes and everything.
Yeah, we'd have to do an audit.
You can go online on Airbnb and see availability.
Yeah.
And
the
they usually
neighbors
project
will,
out.
use their calendar, right?
You should be able to purchase an Airbnb.
Sorry, one at a time.
That's an interesting point. How does the city assess TOT? Is there a third party that gets it and it just sends the city a check?
We'll be looking at using a third party.
All right, okay, all right. So the city's not involved in that.
Well, the city
If
may.
not, it's up to the host to turn and remit that to the city. Right. They hold that only in trust for the city.
All right.
Right. Okay.
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right, so let's go back through. So we're gonna look at redefining hosted on the first page. Look at potential, some different ways of doing that. We're striking the last sentence of primary residence. We are, that's all I have for the second page. On the third page, we are increasing the amount of time to 30 minutes to respond and abate a nuisance. And
Right, it's not posted now, I get it, so you don't really care if it's 5 minutes or 30.
okay, all right. I didn't know you were fighting so hard on that. You thought we were talking about you. I see. All right.
But the other thing we were getting rid of on page 2 was the 9 months a year. That was
Yeah,
the second
right,
one.
yeah, struck that.
We'll strike that.
So the next page, I got no changes.
I'm sorry, can you go back to 5.24.040?
Yeah.
So the capping the number of days of unhosted, if we come to that, would probably be a new subdivision C after that. Because it would be applicable only to the hosted.
Okay, okay. Then, thank you. The next page,
That's it.
nothing. Next page, nothing. Next page, nothing. All right. Okay.
That would probably get rid of all non-posted short-term rentals, all the people that have them.
we need to really think that through. I'm not sure where right is.
But it's something you can do down the road.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Hey, listen, I thank you for taking the time to join us tonight and to give your valuable input and really try to tighten this up. It's an important change in how we do business in the city, and it's a governmental outreach, and we always want to make sure we're getting that right. So what we'll be doing then is making the edits, some corrections, and we'll agendize this for its first reading on May 22nd. You're welcome to attend, or you can watch on the video, and it will be much like what we resolved tonight. I think the only thing that's unclear in my mind is this cap issue. Other than that, I think we're tight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.